Well, welcome to Poly Role Models. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Janet. I live in New York. I'm a 33-year-old bisexual artist.
Awesome. How long you've been polyamorous, or how long you've been practicing polyamory?
Um, I would say that I've been instinctively polyamorous my entire adult life.
Okay.
Um, but practicing actively since I was 21.
Okay.
And that was still not even all that well organized. Um, but when I hit 23, then it was sort of like, okay, you're single, and now you can start to structure things the way that you want.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, very few of us ever actually have it together at age 21. So,
Yeah, but it was definitely something I knew that I was not capable of exclusive relationships. I've always known that. It just took me a while to recognize that the default existed and that I had to deal with the default.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
All right. So, what does your relationship dynamic look like?
I have at the moment one primary, um, and have been somewhat lazy about dating for the past few years. It's been more like maybe just the motivation isn't there. Maybe I'm just getting older, right? But I have a few other partners. Some are romantic, some are sexual. One is long distance romantic, another is primarily sexual, and they all kind of have different dynamics. And it sometimes my husband and I date the same people, which is kind of exciting when it happens, but it hasn't gone as far in multiple dynamics as it could.
Fair enough. What aspect of polyamory do you feel you excel at?
Probably communication and lowering drama as much as possible.
Okay. And what aspect do you feel you struggle with?
I don't know. I should have looked at other people's responses to this, because then I would have been like, oh, yeah, obviously that.
Fair enough.
Maybe setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to not be great at sort of defining how things are, and so it's become something I'm just more conscious of. I'm also, there's just sometimes I'm more dismissive of people's feelings than I should be. So that's, yeah. I would also say that a positive thing that I like doing is this sort of matchmaking thing, and it's something that I realized that I did. So it's this feeling that I get first, where it's if I like somebody a lot, I start to think of all the other people that they would like.
Yeah.
So it's I'm projecting other people's desires and
gotcha.
And trying to trying to expand the network in a way.
Well, how do you address that and the boundaries? How do you feel like you overcome those?
I tend to just put the brakes on myself a lot, so that I'm not as, I don't have as many examples, because I sort of stay I stay back when I'm not sure what to do. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In terms of risk-aware or safer sex, how do you and your partners protect one another?
So the primary and I are fluid bonded. So we don't really use anything with each other anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone else I'm with, we'll sort of check in about how often we've been tested, and we'll always use like a condom or a latex boundary, gloves, etc.
Okay. All right. What is the worst mistake you've made in your polyamorous history? How did you rebound from that?
So that was the sort of like 21 to 23 difference.
Yeah.
That was when I got into this like obsessive relationship with my boyfriend's friend.
Okay.
And this was like during a road trip, so that we were all like sharing a car while it was happening.
Yeah.
And so like after that, I realized that I was like emotionally involved with both of them, and I didn't want to have to choose, so we were just like, okay, this is an open relationship. But the friend was like very mono. And so I like let him kind of like push me into making decisions that I didn't feel like I needed to make. And like once we opened that relationship, like my boyfriend went and like dated around a little bit, and I was like, yay, great.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing was still just because I was like obsessed with this other guy. So eventually, that friend and I both broke up with who we were with at the time in our like traditional hetero relationships, and then like tried to date long distance, and it didn't work. And part of why it didn't work was that I like still felt like I was being limited. And like what I needed was more experience at that point.
I get that. And and so what was like the takeaway? How'd you rebound?
That I needed to be very clear early on that I was not going to be exclusive. That the levels of emotional attachment and like the boundaries that people wanted to set with me would be negotiated verbally from then on. It was also an element of like knowing that I couldn't necessarily be totally honest with everybody, like communicating what I needed to communicate.
Yeah.
Because the long-term partner that I'd been with, part of like the strength of our relationship was that we were always honest.
Yeah.
Like to a fault. And so that strain from like the relationship with his friend, like that was a thing where it was like I should not tell him everything that goes on in this other relationship because it hurts both of them.
Uh-huh.
But now that like now that I've sort of established things better with my partners, like I have a lot of fun like talking about intimate details, or just like the relevant ones, the ones that'll turn people on.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
So, what self-identities are important to you, and how do you feel like being polyamorous intersects with or affects those identities?
I'm not even sure if I call myself bi or pan at this point.
Okay.
But that's pretty important to me. Like, definitely, like, I have a lot more romantic feeling for women than I do for men, but I tend to interact more sexually with men, or just better sexually with men.
Okay.
So there's like this weird sort of structure to it, right? There's like it's not like I'm attracted to every person in the same way. I would say there aren't a lot of other like notable identities. Like I hate that like I don't like that whiteness can be an identity, but like it's kind of there. Because like a lot of my relationships are interracial, and so like yeah, that it comes up. It comes up a lot.
Yeah, I
yeah,
understand.
and I don't know. I'm Jewish, but I was raised atheist, and my mom was very very honest with me about like her sexual openness and her practices because she was engaged in BDSM and my dad wasn't into it, so they had this arrangement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I didn't grow up in a way where like things that I realized were normal were actually normal. Like,
understood.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, do you have any groups, projects, websites, blogs, etc. that you're involved with that you'd like to promote?
Well, the last big project that I'm the most proud of is Daughters of Mercury. That was a few years ago, and I've sort of like closed it because I've made so many paintings and then like kind of sent them out to everybody. And also because like I wanted to limit how like as a cis woman I was using trans women. Like I'm very like that is such a like strong community that I feel like I've been privileged to watch and to like be involved with, and so yeah, like it's a series of life-size full-length portraits of trans women or like trans femme, like some are non-binary. And like some of them are partners or were partners, and some of them were just people that I like really admired, and like all of them I just like loved them and thought they were beautiful and wanted to give them money and attention and like share their work.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time I was trying to get like a nice sort of like diversity of personalities in that.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. My own work being the same way.
Yeah. My more recent portraits I've just sort of been like doing smaller ones, but it's a bit more, it's sort of intersectionally interesting because the point of it is to try and paint people who would never think to commission a portrait, but who like I see just being like beautiful people every day.
Yeah.
And so like many of them are struggling with like mental or physical disabilities. Many are in marginalized populations. There's a lot of like interestingly gendered people.
Yeah.
So like it's really just like my friend network, right? But it's also like, you know, people who are having to struggle in America today.
Yeah, I think I understand. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and being a part of Poly Role Models.
Thank you, Kevin. You're doing wonderful work, and I apologize I'm a little bit boring, but
I don't think you are.
Now you're inspiring me to like be more active in this community. So
awesome. I'm always glad when anytime any of my work impacts anybody else's work. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
All right.